Hey, hope you've been having a great day. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan and I have an endless TBR. You came here for a book haul. It's been a long time since I've uploaded, and the reason is that I just finished the last assignment for my graduate school career. I'm so excited. In the meantime, I have continued to collect books. I have been on vacation and we've been to a number of other independent bookstores, so I have continued to accumulate books. Let's time travel back to August, where my family and I spent a wonderful week in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. We went to one bookstore, which was in the next town over from where we were staying, and I saw this adorable tote on the wall. This tote says #OBX books on it, and it points out all of the independent booksellers on the islands of the Outer Banks. So I was like, that's really cute. We go to the Outer Banks for vacation pretty regularly, so I thought that might be a nice thing to have. However, there was no price listed. Turns out, if you go to 5 out of 7 of these independent bookstores, they hand you the tote. So guess what my mission became? I got the tote. I also wanted to actually purchase a book from each of these locations, and the last one I think I got 2. So this is a mix between books that I hadn't heard of, which is sort of a trend when I go to an independent bookstore. I'm looking for something to surprise me, as well as sort of a local flavor, whether it's a local author or I have one that was set in the Outer Banks. But let me show you the books. This one I picked up at the Island Bookstore in Duck, North Carolina. This is Never Coming Home by Kate Williams, and it is a teen influencer retelling of Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. Saw this on Maura's channel, so this was sort of an exception in that I did know something about this going into it, but I was on vacation, sounded like a good time, and I brought it home with me. Next up, from Downtown Books in Manteo, North Carolina, is Between Tides by Angel Corey. This is one that I don't know a whole lot about, but it was on a display of local authors and is actually set in Cape Cod, which is not in the Outer Banks, but thought I'd give it a try. It seemed to be pretty well reviewed and well liked by readers in the area, and I wanted to pick it up. Whew. A quick brief interruption. As some of you know, because I think I highlighted him in a vlog before I stopped recording, we were fostering a beautiful tuxedo cat named Bruce, and he went back to his mom, who got a new house and was able to accommodate him. And a week later, I was so sad, so we went to our neighborhood shelter and we selected Lilac. Lilac is now Penelope. She's been with us for about 7 weeks, and she's just about 8 months old. So she's a troublemaker in herself, but she is awfully cute and is learning how to climb the bookshelves. So if you see her in the background, she's just exploring. She's also playing. This is sort of her space here in the basement. It'll be our space together now that I have time to read, right? So that's Penny. She is just the sweetest, but also a bit of a nuisance. So I'm going to put you down now. We were talking about the Island Bookstore, and there are actually 3 locations of this bookstore across the Outer Banks Islands. So this was the first location that we went to in Kitty Hawk. It was the closest bookstore to where we were actually staying for the week. And there I picked up a book called The Monsters We Defy by Leslie Penelope. At the time, I hadn't heard anything about this book. In the meantime, I have seen a few other booktubers talk about this. And basically, it's set in Washington, D.C., and it's sort of a paranormal heist story. Our main character can see ghosts. She's tasked with this impossible thing that she's supposed to steal, and it really grabbed me. This cover design is impeccable, and I'm really looking forward to getting to it now that I have some time. The last bookstore that we went to was the Island Bookstore location in Corolla. That's way up north on the Outer Banks, and it was about an hour from where we were staying for the week. Coincidentally, my mom wanted to go up there for a lunch happy hour type event. So we all piled into the car, made our way up the single road that goes up to Corolla through the Outer Banks, and we all took part in the happy hour event, and I dragged everybody to the bookstore for me to look around. So I spent a little bit longer in this island bookstore location. I think I came home with 2 from this particular location since this was the last bookstore that I had to go to. The first one I selected was The New Wilderness by Diane Cook, and I was surprised that I had never heard of this as it was shortlisted for the 2020 Booker. I don't pay a lot of attention to literary prizes necessarily, but the fact that I had never heard this title in my life or seen this cover, it just surprised me. So I don't know anything about this. I'm going to take a quick look at the back. It was apparently also a Washington Post, Amazon, BuzzFeed, and NPR Best Book of the Year in 2020. So this is about Bee's 5-year-old daughter Agnes, who is slowly wasting away, consumed by the smog and pollution of the overdeveloped metropolis that most of the population now calls home. That's bright and cheery. So it looks like a climate fiction disaster novel, whether they stay in the city or make it out in the wilderness. I look forward to finding out. Probably the most unique independent bookstore that I've been in so far was Duck's Cottage Coffee and Books. It was established as a coffee house, and I think that's sort of their primary business. However, they also have a wall of books as you're waiting in the queue to order your coffee. So from this bookstore, we bought coffee. Because obviously we bought a cup of coffee, we also brought coffee beans to bring home. So it was a really good day for me. I also picked up an Outer Banks bookshop mystery called Smile Beach Murder by Alicia Bissett. This was the only option for this particular bookstore. Not that I didn't see anything else that I was interested in, but this was just the cutest thing that was connected to my trip to the Outer Banks, had to do with these independent bookstores. You see the lighthouses, which Outer Banks has so many of them on the coast because of the treacherous shores that are part of the Outer Banks. And it's a cozy mystery. So nothing bad could come from this. My last Outer Banks bookstore selection also came from the Island bookstore location in Corolla, and it was a book that I had looked at multiple times during my trip and decided that I just had to take it with me. So I picked up Vicious Creatures by Ashton Noon. I know nothing about this author. I know very little about the book itself, but it takes place in the Pacific Northwest. There's our main character who's having some troubles of her own, and she has to go back to her childhood hometown where, go figure, creepy things are happening. And I was just intrigued enough to pick this up and bring it home with me. So I'll let you know what I think. Next in my backlog of books to haul, I also had pre-ordered a book probably back in March. It was like in the springtime that came out at the end of August, and I have actually read, and it came from one of my favorite independent bookstores. They're located in Washington, D.C. It's the East City Bookshop that I participate in their Zoom book club. So I had ordered The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. Penny is playing with the tripod, so apologies if that moves. I listened to this via audio on Halloween itself. I wanted something witchy and a little bit fun. I did have to go to work that day, but I had some time at the desk that I got to listen to a book, so this was the one that I chose. It was adorable. I don't think that it's going to stick with me necessarily, again, with bumping the tripod. Thank you, Penny. But I would recommend it as something cozy and witchy, and if you wanted something to spend the day listening to. Our next trip was to see a comedian in a town close by to us that includes a favorite independent bookstore of mine. It's a teeny tiny hole in the wall, but the owner selection is really great, and I always want to find an excuse to go into his shop if we're in that area. So I did manage that. We went to the bookstore, then to dinner, and then our show, and I picked up 3 titles. The first was Lindsay Fay's most recent book, and that's The King of Infinite Space. I saw this in paperback and thought I was interested enough to pick it up. It is, based on the back, a lush, magical, queer, and feminist take on Hamlet in modern-day New York City. The most I know about Hamlet is from my repeated viewings of The Lion King. So not a whole lot of background information for me, but I do trust Lindsay Faye. She does a really nice job of giving you enough context that you understand some of the source material, but you're obviously going to get more if you know the source material. And I really love the way that Faye draws her characters and sort of gives them enough to do in the story. Since I didn't have a whole lot of background information on Hamlet going into Lindsay Faye's novel, I saw this beautiful Penguin edition and thought that I would pick it up. I can read Hamlet, then I can read The King of Infinite Space, and I'll have some of that background information coming into it that will enrich my experience of the retelling, right? And the last selection that I made at Transom Bookshop is a book that I had never heard anything about, have since seen a couple more people talking about it. This is Man-Made Monsters by Andrea L. Rogers with illustrations by Jeff Edwards. This is a selection of interconnected short stories based on the same Cherokee family over generations and centuries. I have not gotten into this quite yet. I had hoped to maybe read it around Halloween time, but my schoolwork was out of control and didn't manage to do so. But I have it at home. I can get through it a little bit at a time, and I'm looking forward to it. So for my school, I didn't have a thesis to complete, but I did have a really giant graduation project that was required to pass. When I submitted that final deadline, I decided to treat myself by going to Barnes & Noble. I went to the big one in about 20 minutes from my house and went through the sale annex, picked out a couple of things there. Those I don't know a whole lot about, and this video has been going on for far too long, so I'm going to show you the new stuff that I purchased, and we'll just call it a day because Penny's ready to take a nap next to me. So I saw a buy one, get one 50% off table, and normally I find 1 or 5 books that I'm interested in reading from those particular tables and decide not to get any of them. I saw 2 that I know I could get out of the library, but I have been really interested in reading them myself. Saw them in these floppy paperback versions, so I picked up The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I have never read this, though I've heard devastating things, and I'm super interested in reading Babel, her most recent release, and figured that I should try the debut before I move on to the more recent publications. And I also picked up The Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. This has intrigued me since it came out, and I thought this was a really great opportunity to snatch it up. I also selected the sequel to this novel from Libro.fm's Advanced Listeners programs. So I'm looking forward to reading this and then getting right into the sequel, if that's how my life works out. Finally, I picked up Bonnie Garmis's debut, Lessons in Chemistry. This has been all the rage in this last half of the year. You can't get it from the library because the holds list is 100 people deep. It was Barnes & Noble's book of the year. I picked up the exclusive edition. I have blue sprayed edges. And while I really hate this cover design, I keep hearing that this is not the story that's inside, and what is inside is really worthwhile. So I'm looking forward to diving into this. I'm going to share it with my mom afterward because she's also heard of it, and she's not a reader, so this is really a big deal. And I will let you know how that goes. So that has been my backlogged book haul. In the meantime, I have continued reading. I didn't have choice because I'm in so many book clubs. I've got a friend book club, the book club that I attend at the East City Bookshop in Washington. That's via Zoom. I did miss a meeting or 2 here and there, and I run 2 book clubs at my job. So I have had to read at least, 3 or 4 books a month in the midst of finishing my graduate school studies. I appreciate anybody who has come back to watch me with all of my new books. I really look forward to being able to get back into creating content based on actually reading books instead of just bringing books into my house. And if you have made it this far in the video, drop the book stack emoji because I love book stacks. I surround myself with book stacks in almost every aspect of my life. And let me know if there is a book that you're looking forward to reading during the holiday season. Now that the year is winding up, what do you have to get to before the end of the year? Make sure to like this video if you liked it. I'd love for you to hit the subscribe button if you feel so inclined so we can chat again about books in the future. I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Penelope. Penny. Penny, that's not yours. Don't be nibbly. You're awfully cute. There's sort of a paranormal, well then. Oh my goodness.